The personal responsibility is the moment when excuses lose their power. It is the point where you stop looking around for someone else to blame and start looking in the mirror for answers. Many people spend years believing that their life is the result of luck, other people's decisions, or circumstances they had no control over. While circumstances are real and sometimes unfair, staying focused on them keeps you stuck. The truth is that growth begins the moment you accept that your life, as it stands today, is largely shaped by your own choices, both the ones you made and the ones you avoided making. Taking responsibility does not mean denying hardship or pretending that everything was easy. It means recognizing that even in difficult situations, you still have control over how you respond. You may not have chosen where you started, but you are choosing where you stay. Every habit you repeat, every standard you accept, and every action you delay is a decision, whether you acknowledge it or not. When you avoid responsibility, you give your power away. When you claim it, you take that power back. The many people say they want change, but what they really want is relief. They want things to improve without discomfort, effort, or sacrifice. Responsibility removes that illusion. It makes it clear that if you want a different life, you must become a different person. That transformation does not happen through wishing, hoping, or waiting. It happens through daily decisions that often feel small and inconvenient, but compound over time into something meaningful. Blame is comfortable because it protects the ego. It allows you to believe that you would be successful if only someone else had treated you differently, supported you more, or given you a better opportunity. But blame also keeps you dependent. As long as the cause of your problems lies outside of you, the solution does too. Responsibility shifts the focus inward, not to criticize yourself, but to empower yourself. It says, if this is my problem, then I can do something about it. Avoiding responsibility often looks like postponement. You tell yourself you will start when you feel ready, when you have more time, when conditions improve. But readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. Time does not create responsibility, ownership does. Waiting for the perfect moment is a subtle way of refusing accountability because it delays action without admitting fear. There is also a cost to refusing responsibility that many people do not acknowledge. Over time, it erodes self-respect. When you know what you should be doing, but repeatedly choose not to do it, something inside you begins to weaken. Confidence fades, not because you lack ability, but because you are not keeping promises to yourself. Responsibility rebuilds that trust. Each time you do what you said you would do, you strengthen your sense of control and self-belief. Taking responsibility also changes how you view failure. Instead of seeing it as proof that you are not good enough, you see it as feedback. If you own the outcome, you can analyze it, learn from it, and adjust. Without ownership, failure feels personal and paralyzing. With ownership, it becomes instructional. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I do differently next time? Some people fear responsibility because they think it means carrying guilt or shame. In reality, responsibility is not about punishment. It is about clarity. It draws a clean line between what you can control and what you cannot. Once that line is clear, your energy stops leaking into complaints and resentment and starts flowing into action. You become less reactive and more intentional. Responsibility also demands honesty. It forces you to admit when you are the one standing in your own way. It exposes patterns of avoidance, comfort seeking, and self-sabotage that are easy to ignore when you blame external factors. That honesty can be uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Growth does not happen through self-deception. It happens when you are willing to tell yourself the truth, even when that truth challenges the story you have been telling. When you fully accept responsibility, your mindset shifts from entitlement to effort. You stop expecting results without work and recognition without contribution. You understand that no one owes you progress, success, or fulfillment. Those things are built, not given. This realization is not discouraging. It is freeing. It means your future is not dependent on someone else's approval or timing. It is shaped by what you choose to do consistently, starting now. Responsibility is not a single decision. It is a daily practice. It shows up in how you manage your time, how you speak to yourself, how you respond to setbacks, and how seriously you take your own potential. It is choosing action over excuses, ownership over comfort, and growth over familiarity. When you accept that no one is coming to fix your life, you stop waiting and start building. And in that shift, you reclaim the authority to change not just your circumstances, but the person you are becoming. Discipline is the quiet force that operates long after excitement fades. Motivation often arrives loud and emotional, fueled by a speech, a moment of inspiration, or a sudden surge of desire to change. It feels powerful, but it is unstable. It depends on mood, energy, and circumstances, all of which shift constantly. Discipline, on the other hand, does not ask how you feel. It is rooted in commitment, not emotion, and that is why it lasts. Relying on motivation is like relying on good weather. When conditions are perfect, progress feels easy. When they are not, everything stops. Discipline trains you to move forward regardless of conditions. It creates structure where chaos would otherwise exist. When you are disciplined, you do not negotiate with discomfort or wait for confidence to appear. You act because you decided to, not because you feel like it. Many people misunderstand discipline as punishment or rigidity, but it is actually an expression of self-respect. It is the act of honoring your goals even when they demand effort. Each disciplined action reinforces the belief that your future matters more than your present comfort. Over time, this mindset reshapes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who trees and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. Motivation often focuses on outcomes. It imagines the reward, the recognition, the finish line. Discipline focuses on process. It cares less about how far there is to go and more about what needs to be done today. That daily focus is what makes progress inevitable. Small, consistent actions compound into results that motivation alone can never sustain. When motivation fades, and it always has, discipline remains as a system you can rely on. Systems remove the need for constant decision-making. Instead of asking yourself whether you should act, discipline answers that question in advance. This reduces mental friction and conserves energy. You are no longer battling yourself every day. You are executing a plan you already committed to. Discipline also builds emotional resilience. When you repeatedly show up in moments of resistance, you train yourself to tolerate discomfort without quitting. This tolerance becomes a strength that extends beyond your goals. Challenges stop feeling overwhelming because you have proven to yourself that discomfort is survivable. You learn that progress does not require enthusiasm, only consistency. There is a deeper level to discipline that goes beyond routine. It is about choosing long-term identity over short-term impulses. Every disciplined choice is a vote for the person you want to become. Skipping an easy shortcut, waking up when you would rather sleep, and continuing when no one is watching all reinforce that identity. Over time, these choices shape your character more than any burst of motivation ever could. Motivation tends to create cycles of intensity and collapse. People start strong, push hard, then burn out when emotions change. Discipline smooths those extremes. It encourages steady effort instead of dramatic surges. This steadiness protects you from self-sabotage and unrealistic expectations. You learn to value progress that is quiet and sustainable over progress that is impressive but temporary. Discipline also changes how you relate to failure. When motivation is your primary driver, setbacks feel devastating because they break the emotional momentum. With discipline, setbacks are part of the process. You do not stop because something went wrong, you adjust and continue. The habit of continuing becomes more important than any single result. Over time, discipline creates confidence, but not the loud kind built on hype. This confidence is grounded and internal. It comes from knowing that you can rely on yourself. You trust your actions more than your feelings. That trust becomes a source of stability in uncertain situations because you are no longer waiting for inspiration to guide you. Discipline does not remove struggle, but it gives struggle a purpose. It reframes effort as an investment rather than a burden. Each time you act despite resistance, you reinforce the understanding that growth is earned, not granted. This perspective removes entitlement and replaces it with ownership. Eventually, discipline reduces the need for motivation altogether. Action becomes routine, not heroic. Progress becomes expected, not surprising. You stop asking whether you feel capable and start proving that you are. In this way, discipline does not just help you reach your goals, it transforms how you approach every challenge. It becomes the foundation that supports consistent action when emotions fluctuate, circumstances change, and motivation disappears. Waiting often disguises itself as wisdom, patience, or preparation, but more often than not, it is fear wearing a respectable mask. People convince themselves that they are being careful, that they are gathering information, that they will act when the timing is right. In reality, that moment rarely arrives. The habit of waiting becomes comfortable, and comfort slowly turns into stagnation. Growth demands movement, and movement requires action, even when the conditions feel uncertain. The idea of a right time gives people permission to delay responsibility. It suggests that progress depends on external alignment rather than internal decision. But time does not become right on its own. Circumstances rarely arrange themselves neatly, and confidence does not appear fully formed. Those who move forward do so while still uncertain, still unprepared, and still afraid. Action does not wait for clarity. Clarity follows action. Waiting also creates the illusion of safety. By not acting, you avoid the possibility of failure, rejection, or embarrassment. But this avoidance comes at a cost. The cost is unrealized potential. Every opportunity you do not pursue becomes a quiet loss, not dramatic enough to mourn, but heavy enough to accumulate regret. Over time, these missed chances shape a life that feels smaller than it should. Many people say they are waiting to feel ready, but readiness is not an emotional state. It is a skill developed through repetition. You become ready by starting, not by hesitating. Confidence is built through experience, and experience only comes from engagement. Each action teaches you something that waiting never can. Even mistakes carry information that moves you forward. Waiting can also trap you in endless planning. Planning feels productive, but without execution it becomes another form of avoidance. You refine ideas, research options, and imagine outcomes, all while postponing the one step that matters most. Action exposes flaws in your plans, but it also reveals solutions you could never see from a distance. Reality corrects theory, but only if you enter it. Another danger of waiting is comparison. When you delay, you have more time to watch others move ahead. Their progress can discourage you, making the gap between where you are and where you want to be feel even wider. This comparison reinforces the belief that you are behind, which then justifies more waiting. It becomes a cycle where inaction feeds doubt, and doubt feeds further inaction. Waiting often feels passive, but it is an active choice. Each day you delay is a decision to remain where you are. Time continues to move whether you do or not. This creates a silent pressure, because the future you imagine requires effort from the present you are avoiding. The longer you wait, the heavier that pressure becomes. Action interrupts this cycle. Even small steps break the illusion that you are stuck. Movement creates feedback, and feedback creates direction. You do not need a full map to begin, you need a first step. That step may be imperfect, but it establishes momentum. Momentum is more valuable than certainty because it keeps you engaged and adaptable. Fear often intensifies during waiting. When you imagine an action for too long, your mind exaggerates the risks and minimizes your ability to handle them. Action shrinks fear by making it concrete. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable once it is faced. You learn that most obstacles are not as intimidating as they appear from a distance. Waiting also erodes urgency. When there is always later, there is no pressure to act now. But urgency is not about panic, it is about respect for time. Time is the one resource that cannot be replenished. When you treat it casually, you undermine your own goals. Action honors time by using it intentionally, even imperfectly. Starting before you feel ready also teaches humility. It forces you to accept that growth includes mistakes. This acceptance is freeing because it removes the need to appear competent from the beginning. You shift from trying to look capable to actually becoming capable. That shift only happens through doing. Each action, no matter how small, builds evidence that you are capable of moving forward. This evidence is more powerful than reassurance or advice. It comes from lived experience, not theory. Over time, action reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who plans and waits, and start seeing yourself as someone who acts and adjusts. Waiting promises comfort, but action delivers progress. The longer you postpone movement, the more effort it takes to begin. Action reduces that friction by making movement normal. It becomes part of who you are, not something you have to force. When you stop waiting for the right time and start working with the time you have, forward motion becomes possible, and possibility turns into momentum. Struggle is often misunderstood as a sign that something has gone wrong, when in reality it is evidence that something meaningful is taking shape. Discomfort is not a signal to stop, it is a signal that you are stretching beyond what is familiar. Every worthwhile change introduces friction, and that friction is what builds strength. Without resistance, there is no development, only repetition of what is already easy. Many people try to avoid struggle because they associate it with failure or weakness. They believe that if something is truly meant for them, it should feel natural and effortless. This belief quietly sabotages growth. Effort does not mean you are incapable, it means you are learning. The presence of difficulty does not disqualify you. It shapes you. Struggle forces you to confront your limits, and in doing so, it expands them. When things come easily, there is little incentive to adapt or improve. When challenges arise, you are pushed to think differently, act deliberately, and develop skills you did not previously need. These moments demand more of you, and that demand becomes the source of resilience. There is also a mental strength that only struggle can build. When you endure discomfort without quitting, you teach yourself that pain is temporary and manageable. This lesson changes how you respond to future challenges. Instead of reacting with panic or avoidance, you approach difficulty with composure. You no longer interpret struggle as a threat, but as a familiar part of progress. Struggle also clarifies priorities. When everything is easy, effort is scattered. When things are hard, you are forced to decide what truly matters. You learn where to focus your energy and what is worth sacrificing for. This clarity sharpens your commitment and filters out distractions that do not serve your growth. Avoiding struggle often leads to stagnation disguised as stability. Life may feel comfortable, but comfort has a ceiling. It protects you from discomfort, but it also limits your potential. Struggle, though uncomfortable, has no such ceiling. Each challenge overcome becomes proof that you are capable of more than you previously believed. There is a quiet confidence that comes from surviving difficulty. It is not loud or performative. It comes from knowing that you have faced pressure and remained standing. This confidence is durable because it is built on experience, not affirmation. You trust yourself not because someone told you that you are strong, but because you have tested that strength. Struggle also develops patience. Progress through difficulty is rarely fast, and this slowness teaches you to value persistence over immediate results. You learn to stay engaged even when rewards are delayed. This patience becomes a competitive advantage in a world that often quits when progress is not instant. Another overlooked benefit of struggle is humility. Difficulty reminds you that growth is a process, not a performance. It keeps you grounded and open to learning. When things are hard, you are more willing to listen, adjust, and accept feedback. This openness accelerates improvement in ways that ease never could. Struggle also deepens empathy. When you have experienced hardship, you are less likely to judge others for theirs. You understand that strength is not always visible, and that effort often goes unseen. This understanding strengthens relationships and creates a sense of shared humanity that success alone cannot provide. There is meaning hidden inside struggle that comfort cannot offer. When you work through adversity, the outcome carries weight. You value what you earn because you know what it cost. This sense of earned achievement strengthens your connection to your goals and reinforces your commitment to them. Struggle teaches adaptability. When the original plan fails, you are forced to improvise. You develop flexibility, learning how to respond instead of react. This ability to adjust becomes essential in a world where certainty is rare and change is constant. The discomfort of struggle also strips away illusions. It exposes habits, beliefs, and patterns that no longer serve you. In this exposure, you are given the opportunity to rebuild stronger foundations. What feels like breakdown is often preparation for growth. Struggle is not something to eliminate from your path. It is something to engage with intentionally. When you stop viewing difficulty as an enemy and start seeing it as a teacher, its power changes. It stops draining you and starts shaping you. Through struggle, resilience is forged, perspective is sharpened, and strength becomes something you live, not just something you admire. Action is the dividing line between intention and transformation. Many people live with good ideas, strong opinions, and clear desires, yet their lives remain unchanged because those thoughts never turn into consistent behavior. Excuses fill the gap where action should be. They sound reasonable, logical, and often compassionate, but their real function is to protect inaction. When excuses are present, progress is postponed indefinitely. Excuses often begin as explanations. You tell yourself that circumstances are not ideal, that you are too busy, too tired, or lacking the right resources. These explanations feel harmless at first, but repeated over time they become habits. Each excuse reinforces the belief that action is optional, something to be done later rather than now. This belief quietly weakens your sense of agency. Action requires accepting imperfect conditions. There is rarely a moment when everything aligns. Waiting for that alignment creates dependency on external factors you cannot control. When you act despite uncertainty, you reclaim control. You shift from reacting to life to shaping it. This shift is subtle but powerful because it changes how you see yourself in relation to your goals. Letting go of excuses is uncomfortable because excuses provide emotional relief. They reduce pressure and lower expectations. Action does the opposite. It raises the standard and exposes you to the possibility of failure. But without that exposure, growth is impossible. Every meaningful improvement requires risk, and action is how you take that risk in manageable steps. Small actions matter more than dramatic gestures. Many people overestimate what can be done in a single moment and underestimate what can be achieved through consistent effort. Action compounds. One decision leads to another, building momentum that eventually carries you further than motivation ever could. This momentum is fragile at first, but it strengthens with repetition. Excuses also distort time. They convince you that there will always be another chance, another season, another opportunity. In reality, time moves forward without regard for intention. Action respects time by using it deliberately. Each step taken is an investment, even when the return is not immediate. Over time, these investments accumulate into visible change. Action creates clarity. While thinking and planning have value, they cannot replace execution. Once you act, you receive feedback. That feedback shows you what works, what is not, and what needs adjustment. Without action, ideas remain theoretical and untested. With action, they become refined through experience. There is also a psychological shift that happens when excuses are replaced by action. You begin to identify as someone who responds rather than delays. This identity change is significant because behavior follows self-perception. When you see yourself as proactive, action becomes natural rather than forced. Excuses lose their appeal because they no longer align with who you believe yourself to be. Action also exposes resistance. Procrastination, fear, and self-doubt surface when you move forward. This exposure is not a setback, it is information. You cannot address what remains hidden. By acting, you reveal internal barriers that need attention. Each barrier confronted strengthens your ability to continue. Excuses often rely on external validation. You wait for approval, encouragement, or reassurance before moving. Action breaks that dependency. It teaches you to validate yourself through effort rather than opinion. This independence is empowering because it reduces the influence of doubt and criticism. Consistent action builds integrity. When your actions align with your stated goals, you develop trust in yourself. This trust is foundational. It supports confidence, resilience, and perseverance. Without it, even success feels unstable. With it, progress feels earned and sustainable. Action does not eliminate fear, but it reframes it. Fear becomes a signal of importance rather than a command to stop. Each time you act despite fear, you weaken its control. Over time, fear loses its authority, and courage becomes habitual. Letting go of excuses also sharpens focus. Energy once spent justifying inaction is redirected toward problem solving. Instead of asking why something cannot be done, you ask how it can be done. This shift transforms obstacles into challenges rather than dead ends. Action turns responsibility into momentum. It transforms awareness into effort and effort into change. When excuses are removed, there is nothing left but choice. Each choice either moves you forward or keeps you where you are. Progress is not the result of perfect planning or endless intention. It is the outcome of repeated action, taken even when conditions are imperfect and certainty is absent. Write one paragraph of ending in his own words. At some point, everything comes back to a simple decision: stay where you are or take responsibility for where you're going. Life will not slow down to accommodate hesitation, and it will not adjust itself to your comfort. What you do consistently will always matter more than what you intend occasionally. The work will demand effort, honesty, and patience, and there will be days when progress feels invisible. But those are the days that shape you most. When you choose discipline over excuses, action over waiting, and growth over comfort, you step into your authority. Not because the path is easy, but because it's yours. And when you finally look back, you won't measure your life by what you hoped for. You'll measure it by what you had the courage to do,